Hello everyone. So in the previous class we had seen the provisions with respect to anti-defection law, that is the 10th schedule, and we also saw the 91st Amendment Act of 2003, through which there was a replacement made from 1/3 merger split being allowed to 2/3 mergers being allowed, and couple of changes made in Article 75, 164, and a separate Article 361B was also added. So now we'll see the issues involved with the laws. See, as far as ADL is concerned, it has been simmering with lot many issues. It's an old law now. It's been somewhere close to 35 years since the law was passed, with just a minor change made in 2003. So there are certain issues that have to be removed from the provisions so as to make the law even more sound and stable. The very first issue is what is called the power of disqualification. When you study Article 103, we had done this in the topic Parliament, so you'll be clear. When we were studying Article 102, it mentioned disqualifications for MPs in the Parliament, and 103 states that the President decides on the disqualifications. However, such disqualifications, when the President decides over them, he has to abide by the binding advice of Election Commission. This means that for all matters of disqualification, be it office of profit, or the issue of citizenship, or the issue of insolvency, or the issue of being of unsound mind, or other matters which I mentioned under the Representation of Peoples Act 1951, the Section 8A. On all such matters, Section 8, on all such matters, it is the Election Commission which advises the President, and the President acts accordingly. However, it is only in one case for the disqualification of the legislators where it is the presiding officer who decides. Election Commission is an independent body, right? Whereas the presiding officer may or may not be independent because eventually he belongs to the ruling party. That has been made a case, a convention of sorts since the last almost 25 years. It has been made a convention that the presiding officer belongs to the ruling party, and even before that it was inevitably always the case. So there are chances of the person having some kind of malafide intentions, whereas Election Commission is the neutral body, is an independent body. So the powers of disqualification should ideally be given to Election Commission. That is one issue which has to be dealt with, and the suggestions are very clear here. The second and another important factor which we were explaining right in the very beginning at the onset of our lecture was the issue of Maharashtra. See what happened in Maharashtra. In Maharashtra, the BJP and Shiv Sena joined hands together, and they were coalition parties before the elections. This meant that of the 288 seats which were involved, on which the elections took place, BJP and Shiv Sena must have divided amongst them the seats, so that say BJP would contest from 200 and Shiv Sena from 88. This is just an example. This is not the exact scenario. Now say there's a candidate contesting from a Shiv Sena seat. That means the seat which was allocated to Shiv Sena. Now all those people of that constituency, even if they want to vote for BJP, they have no option, because no BJP candidate would contest from this place, because both these parties have together come up with a pre-poll alliance. Hence, if in this constituency A, if a person wants to vote for BJP, he indirectly has to vote for Shiv Sena. He has to vote for Shiv Sena so that his vote reaches BJP. And when Shiv Sena after the elections joined hands with Congress and NCP, this meant that the trust was breached, and the situation still stands. So ideally, even though as of now there is no provision to cover pre-election coalition parties, the ADL should be changed so that it also covers pre-election coalition parties. Third, ADL is silent on anti-party activities outside the parliament. Say, for example, we had this MP from BJP, Shatrughan Sinha, 2014, right after the elections, with the rise of Narendra Modi, and Narendra Modi literally overshadowed everyone in the party. Shatrughan Sinha did not get any ministerial post, and from then onwards, he kept on talking ill about the party outside the parliament. However, in the parliament, he would always inevitably vote in favor of BJP. So his respect for BJP was limited only to the parliament. Why? It was limited only to the parliament simply because he did not want to be disqualified. So anti-party activities outside the parliament are totally permitted, whereas inside the parliament it is a strict no-no. So this creates a confusion, and ADL is completely silent on all such activities. The fourth and the most important aspect, or the biggest loophole of ADL provisions, are that there is no time frame for the speaker to take a decision. Now, a lot of people have a confusion here that eventually it is the judiciary which decides, and every decision by the speaker is subject to judicial review. However, judiciary has very clearly stated that it can only interfere if the speaker takes a decision. Let's get back to the same original example of Rahul Gandhi voting in favor of BJP and Congress party complaining to the speaker. Now, in this case, if the speaker says that Rahul Gandhi will not be disqualified, that is a decision. Congress party may challenge it in the Supreme Court, High Court or Supreme Court, and the High Court obviously will see the facts, verify the facts, and then accordingly can overturn the decision of the speaker. However, if the speaker does not take a decision and keeps an inquiry pending, because as Supreme Court has said, investigation is mandatory before you arrive at any decision with respect to disqualification. So if the presiding officer keeps the investigation on and keeps it pending, then even the courts cannot interfere in this matter, because the courts cannot force the presiding officer to take a decision. That is a protection given to the presiding officer. So that is one challenge which is present with respect to the speaker's decision, and there have been recommendations from various committees that the speaker's decision should have a time frame of a maximum period of 3 months. This needs to be taken care of. Now, there is also an interesting aspect of application of ADL, though this was not present initially, but this was more of an issue created by the Supreme Court ruling way back in 1996 in one Viswanathan case. Supreme Court said that, see, ADL says that all your provisions are applicable when a person leaves the party. What if Rahul Gandhi in this case does not leave the party, but Congress expels Rahul Gandhi? In this situation, Supreme Court has said that Rahul Gandhi will stand expelled, but he will still be under the ADL provisions, and all the whips issued by the Congress will still be applicable to Rahul Gandhi. So in case Rahul Gandhi, despite being expelled by his party, if he tries to go against the whip or directive issued by the party, he can be disqualified. This is a very strange scenario. Ideally, ADL should not be applicable to expelled members, or they should be treated as independent members. However, this entire issue is more of a creation of Supreme Court's judgment and needs to be rectified. The last issue, and obviously this is one issue which sees no end, because this is the trade-off that we had to make in order to have defection. See, whenever any party issues the whip or directive, what it does is, very firstly, it suppresses genuine dissent between the members of that particular political party. Say, for example, there could be people in BJP who would say that I do not support the bill on the citizenship amendment. But if the BJP issues a whip, then they have to vote in favor of the bill, and even if they feel otherwise, there is no option for them. If they vote otherwise, they may be disqualified. Also, so that is what is called whip gagging. Gagging means to prevent someone from speaking. So in short, whip gagging can have various aspects. So firstly, it is the suppression of genuine dissent. Secondly, you do not allow members to use conscience. Conscience meaning they are not able to use their mind. They simply have to read the whip, the order that is released by the party. It is circulated and it is shown to the member. The member sees the order, signs it, and comes to the particular given date and simply votes in whichever direction the party wants him or her to do. Now, he therefore is in no need or in no compulsion to use his conscience at all. So that also becomes a problem when the MPs are not allowed to use their conscience. Thirdly, what if you are an MP of a constituency in which most people were against CAB? Say, for example, you belong to a particular constituency and most people in your constituency did not want this bill to be passed. However, you belong to BJP and you had no other option but to vote for a yes, or you would be disqualified. So eventually, since you're voting for yes, you are voting against the mandate of the people or the interest of the people. So whip gagging also entails or includes the fact that ADL also prevents all the members from faithfully representing the interests of their constituencies. The fourth point D, that is an interesting aspect here. See, when you read Article 75, the third clause of Article 75, it states that the Council of Ministers are responsible to the Lok Sabha, not the Parliament, to the Lok Sabha. This means that the entire Lok Sabha can question the Council of Ministers. However, at least for the ruling party, the entire concept gets reversed. The government brings a bill, the party high command usually brings the bill, and all the MPs have to simply toe the line, abide by the diktat of the party, and they cannot question the government because the whip has been issued in this case. So rather than the Council of Ministers being responsible to the Lok Sabha, it becomes the other way around, where the MPs of individual parties become responsible to the heads of the parties and MPs of the ruling party become responsible to the government. And towards the end, the larger issue here also is the fact that the parliament is a place for deliberations and discussions. When you bring a bill into the parliament, when a bill is placed, tabled in the parliament, what is required is that all the MPs discuss on the bill, on the intricacies of the bill. But what ADL has done is that now the government which brings the bill simply has to convince the leaders of all the parties. Once the leader of all these parties are convinced, now these leaders in turn will issue a whip for their party, and all the people of their party will simply vote in the direction in which the leader issues a whip. So the government will only have to convince a handful of senior members of all the other parties. So it also takes away the entire concept of deliberations from the parliament. Just to sum it up, and getting back to the Quixote Hollowan case, which we have referred to time and again, in the Quixote Hollowan case, the judgment also included a very important and interesting fact. It said that whip should be issued, obviously, and defiance of whip should lead to defection. However, a whip should not be issued for any small matter, and it should be limited to only 3 matters. Even if you issue a whip for any matter, defiance of that whip or voting against the whip should lead to defection only in 3 circumstances. The first one being a trust vote, that is a vote of confidence. When we were studying the motion, we saw this. Second is a vote of no confidence, the no confidence motion. And third, when the bill talks about a matter which was a major policy issue on which the party went to polls. Say, for example, Congress in 2019 in its manifesto claimed that they would remove sedition or make it a civil offense or remove it altogether, 124A. Now, if suppose in some alternate planet or alternate universe, Congress won the elections. And if they won the elections and they tried to bring about a bill modifying the IPC and trying to remove 124A, then in this situation, even if some Congress MP did not feel like 124A should go away, he still would have to vote for this because this was a major policy issue on which the party went to polls seeking votes. This was a part of manifesto. So ideally, the whip should, or defiance of whip should lead to defection only if the bill relates to one of the aspects of manifestos of the party. right? So this is all about the Kyoto Hall 1 case. Towards the very end, this is just the judgment of the Kyoto Hall 1, where Supreme Court said that when questions were asked actually as to whip gagging being a huge problem, how do you see this? Supreme Court was asked whether whip gagging is justified or whether this genuine dissent should be suppressed. Supreme Court, in a very interesting fashion, said that obviously you have to understand that the political behavior which is conspicuous, a dangerous political behavior, is it is a real and imminent threat to democracy. So this has to be curbed. Obviously, when you curb such kind of behaviors, there are some trade-offs, and every political and economic experimentation has certain side effects. It is just that you have to weigh the pros and cons, and in this situation the pros outweigh the cons, meaning that the defection was seen by Supreme Court as a bigger problem compared to whip gagging, and that is why it closed by stating that the usual plus and minus of all areas of experimental legislation are taken into account, and if the pros outweigh the cons, I think the bill stands justified. That was their opinion in seeking a justification of the provisions. But I mean, in a conclusion, I would simply state that that has been the irony, where it has discouraged honest debate, where whip gagging has been a genuine concern, where dissent has been suppressed, but still cross voting keeps on happening despite the government's survival being at stake. How does this happen? The problem here is that 2/3, or as I mentioned, the wholesale defection being allowed. Say a particular political party has only 3 members in the parliament, say in the Lok Sabha. What the government needs to do is simply bribe 2 of them. That becomes 2/3, or bribe all 3 of them. They defect to ruling party. In this situation, it is very easy to get a couple of votes if the government is running short of just 2 votes. Or otherwise, if the opposition party wants their votes in case of a no confidence motion, they can simply bribe them and ask these 3 people to vote in their favor, and this defection will not be included. So even though the Supreme Court accepted the trade-off, but what we have seen is that both the things go on simultaneously happen. Whip gagging continues to be a problem, and this ADL has not even stopped cross voting. This is all about ADL. On 2 occasions, questions were asked in prelims with respect to ADL. I would want you to write the answers and mail me the answers. You can also post the answers in the comment section here. The first one, I'll briefly discuss that. The first one, which was asked last year, was about the individual parliamentarian's role as a national lawmaker. See, these 2 questions have a relationship here. The role of individual parliamentarian as a lawmaker is on decline, which in turn has adversely impacted the quality of debates and their outcome. This means that individuals' role has decreased, and because of that, the quality of debates and the outcome of debates has also been impacted. You have to list the reasons, 250 words answer. You can list various reasons. ADL is one of the very important reasons here. Other reasons could be education of the education qualifications of the MPs. You can also add the criminalization factor. You can also add technical issues. Technical issues as in the bills of today are more technical in nature. It becomes extremely difficult to have a discussion on technical matters amongst all the legislators, where we have people of varying technical qualifications in the parliament. Also, this aspect or this interesting phenomenon of sending bills to the departmental standing committees is also one reason why debates have come down. Also, the fact that the debates or the discussions are reduced because of rampant disruptions in the parliament. In fact, these disruptions were so serious in the tenure of 2009 to 14 that huge amount of time, it is said that 40% of parliamentary discussion time was wasted because of the disruptions. In 2013, a similar question was asked, slightly differently framed. The role of individual MPs has diminished over the years, and as a result, healthy constructive debates on policy issues are not usually witnessed. Role of MPs has diminished, and because of that you are not able to witness these debates which should happen on policy issues. How far can this be attributed? How far is the key word here. How far can this be attributed to anti-defection law, which was legislated but with a different intention? So when I was discussing the Supreme Court's statement, that is also a part of it. However, you may tend to get confused and start writing all about ADL. The question says, how far do you feel that the role of MPs has been affected because of ADL? Yes, ADL is extremely important and ADL is responsible to a certain extent. But it is not just ADL which is responsible. All these factors of technicalities, sending to committees, education, criminality, disruptions, all these factors are also important. So here, even though the question stated ADL, people would jump on to write ADL as and start mentioning provisions and issues with ADL. The answer would have to include all such factors along with an explanation on ADL, the whip gagging being the larger issue. And conclusion is something which I've already mentioned with respect to this topic. That's all for this topic. See you in the next class. Thank you.